In this video, I'm going to talk about what I think is my, and maybe your, most important trait for success. But just mentioning it wouldn't be much of a video, so I'm also going to talk about how to cultivate it. And I can say that much, that if you clicked in this video, you have at least some of this trait, and it's possible to cultivate it even more and use it to your advantage in life. So let's get right into it. The trait is curiosity. So curiosity is something we're all born with to a certain degree, but it differs from person to person. So I'm naturally more curious than average, I think, and I'd be lucky to be that. But I think we're all curious to a certain degree, and I think it's a very human trait to have, to be curious, because humans are very adaptable, and to be adaptable you need to be able to learn new things, and then curiosity goes hand in hand with that. And firstly, I'm just going to mention a few of the tips that I've been using and that you can use too to develop your curiosity and how to nurture it and make yourself more curious, basically. And one of those is just to make it a habit to look up things that you're wondering. So say you're on a plane and you're just suddenly starting to wonder, how do actually planes work? Well, then you look it up and then you learn about it. And if you keep doing this for not everything, but like almost everything that you want to learn more about, then you're obviously going to learn more, but you're also going to make yourself more curious in the process. I think we all sometimes have a thought in our head about how does this work and why does this happen, especially when we were kids. That used to be a question all the time, and we used to ask our parents like why and how and what about everything. But sometimes today we're just gonna have those thoughts in our heads and then they disappear and we do nothing about them. But if you take those thoughts and then you look them up, because we have the internet now, so you can just look everything up, then you're going to nurture your curiosity and you're also going to learn a lot more. But one important thing here is that it doesn't become sort of a nuisance and a chore to do it. Because if you ask yourself something like, how does the plane work? And then it feels like boring and tedious to have to take up your phone and take up Google and Googling how it works and learn about it right then and there. And that's going to decrease your curiosity actually, because then you'll have negative experiences and associations with learning new things, which is the worst you can do. So don't do that. If you don't feel like it, just skip it and do it another time. But if you feel like it and maybe you have a thought in your head and it feels like, okay, I'm actually wondering how this works, then go ahead and learn more about it and Google it, because that is what grows your curiosity. Another thing is just to write down a list of things you are interested in and try to make that a pretty long list, because it will be. You'll probably be surprised actually by how long it is if you take down everything, like every topic that you have some degree of interest in. Because nobody's just all about one thing. Of course you can be 90% about one main thing if that's how your life is, but to many people they're going to have like a variety of things they're kind of interested in. And once you have that down on a sheet of paper, then it's going to be much easier to pinpoint, okay, I know some stuff about this and I'm interested in it, but there's so much more that I don't know and that I could learn more about. So then you can refer to that sheet of paper and look at what I want to learn and how I can use curiosity to learn more about this. Because once you know that you have a list of things that you're interested in, then of course you would want to learn more about it, why not? And that also develops your curiosity. Another thing that I've talked about in another video as well is just to go back in the past and look at what you were into back then. Like me, when I was about 6 years old, I was really obsessed with dinosaurs. I thought that was really cool. And it's not really something that I look into a whole lot at the moment. But I mean, it is kind of cool, isn't it? So why not learn more about it? So I can maybe use my curiosity to have a look online about dinosaurs. Why not? Because that kind of goes back to what I did before, so I'm going to relive a bit of my childhood and a bit of childhood memory in it as well, which is often a positive feeling. Another tip, which is great, not just for curiosity and learning, but also for social skills, is to really listen when you're talking to people in conversations. So if you're talking to someone, really make a point to listen to what they say and be interested in what they talk about, because if you're interested, you'll be interesting. So listen really to what they're talking about and ask them questions, and often they'll get into topics about something they're passionate about, and then you can learn more. So then you'll both appear more interesting and likable to that other person, but you'll also learn something new, which means that every time you talk to someone, or almost every time, you're going to learn something new, and that's going to increase your learning and also increase your curiosity as well, because you're used to learning new stuff every time you're talking to someone. Without any pressure, of course. It's just like, it's a casual conversation, but you make it a point to listen, and then a natural consequence of that ends up becoming that you learn more, you become more curious, and you also improve your social skills. So that's just going to be a win across the board. Now, I could give you some homework and some exercises to do to just try to increase your curiosity, but that would kind of ruin the point, because curiosity is all about wanting to learn more, and you do it off your own free will, not just because anyone else tells you to. So just try to use those tips and see if that kind of cultivates your habit and trait of being more curious than you already are. So why is curiosity so great? That's the second part of this video. Why should you even care, and why is curiosity important for success? Well, the other day I was actually watching Ty Lopez and Mark Cuban. They had an interview together on YouTube, and Mark Cuban mentioned it himself. He said, if you're not curious, if you're not learning, then you're falling behind. Because in this modern world that we live in, new technology comes up all the time, new innovations, everything. And if you learn, you stay up to date, but if you don't learn, you fall behind. So you always have to learn. Learning is kind of a prerequisite for living in the world today. And if you like learning, and if you're into it, and if you do it voluntarily, that's obviously going to be an advantage. And that's what curiosity is all about. So that's one thing, not falling behind. And I'm thinking career-wise, I'm thinking just personal life and technology in general, technology that you use professionally and personally. Another thing about a person who's curious is that they'll often learn a lot of things about different fields, and I think a lot of innovations and progresses in society comes from combining different fields and in the intersections of different fields. So that's where you're going to be really advantageous as well, and you can use that maybe as an entrepreneur and as part of a startup or a business, or just in life in general, because if you know something about this topic and this topic, then the knowledge of combining those into one thing is really valuable. Let's say one thing that you can know about was maybe about banking and the economy, and then you also knew about coding. Then you could combine that and get into cryptocurrency. Like, wow, that's a trend. Or if you knew about cars and then you knew about electronics, then you can combine that and create electric cars. And those two things are already being done, but there are many more fields that you can probably combine and will be combined in the future, and that's where curiosity is really great, because curious people will inevitably come up with new connections. A third and final point about why curiosity is so important is because I think it can lead to something I call a multidisciplinary life. And that's a word that I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing correctly, because it's not something you say very often. But that's kind of my ideal idea of what a life is about. I'm probably not the first person ever to think of this idea, but I wanted to set aside a tiny bit of time at the end of this video to explain what it's about and why I think that's kind of the ideal life to strive for. It's a life that consists of multiple different parts, because life is multifaceted. So it goes way beyond just a work-life balance, because life isn't just work and life, like personal and professional. It can be much more than that. And if you manage to create a life where you enjoy what you do during the day, and that's something that combines both a path to making you money and career-wise, something that makes you happy, something that makes you cultivate relationships with other people, that makes you contribute to the world, that lets you be creative, that lets you travel if that's what you want, that lets you make an impact on the world and have a positive impact on not just the people you meet, but also people otherwise in the world, and all of those things combined into one life. That sounds kind of abstract and maybe also a bit utopian, but I really think a life like that is possible to create. So not that you're not just spending a certain amount of hours doing work stuff and then a certain amount of time doing everything else that you want, but you're sort of combining everything into one giant soup of life, and you spend some hours doing something that makes you money, but then that can also maybe impact other people, and that can also be creative, and you like pick and choose from all those different characteristics. And this is probably a bad explanation, so to summarize, it's a life that's all about diversity and challenges. So you're not just doing one simple repetitive thing, but you're doing a lot of different things, you're combining your different interests, and you're making an impact on the world while you do it. And if that's something you'd like to hear more about, then I can talk about that in another video in a way that's a bit more structured and less improvised. So let me know if you want to hear that. But I think that's kind of the ideal life to have, especially for me. And if you have curiosity, you're going to be able to learn about different fields and combine them into that kind of integrated soup of life, if that makes sense. But yeah, this was my video about curiosity and why that's such an important trait for success. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.